welcome back to the David's Door podcast. Now you may or may not know that I go live on TikTok on my account, which is I am David Christensen, every Friday and Saturday around 8 p.m. to 10 p.m. EST. And I like to go live, answer questions, have conversations, talk with you. I've been going live since 2020. That's when I became a full-time content creator online and doing what I love, traveling. But I was talking to you on there, and someone had asked, I hope you're watching, hello, what got you into this? You know, I call myself an eclectic pagan. Spirituality, what got me into presence, awareness, consciousness. How did this happen? And I was like, you know what? I'm going to make an episode about that. So, hey, welcome to the episode of How the Heck Did I Get Here? As a pagan, as an eclectic, as somebody who dives into consciousness, oneness, meditation, all these types of topics. How did this happen? Especially coming from a Christian background. I was Christian for 23 years. I was born into it. Never really forced. Just my father told me, he said, hey, I want you to church. Christianity, we're going to look at it non-denominational. I didn't do Catholic or anything, so nothing crazy. But he just told me he didn't really know how to raise me, or us, my family. He said he didn't really know how to lay out a path or what morals to teach, or he had a rough bring up. I don't want to dive too deep into that, but he pretty much didn't know what to do. And he's like, at least this religion, this Christianity has some sort of structure, and they seem, from the outside, relatively good path, a good start. And I was like, that's fair. I was really mature. I'm really grateful for my dad for doing that. But I was in church for 23 years, standard Christian. There's a sky daddy, some guy living in the sky who created us, and he's wrathful, and he wants us. We burn in a hell that he created for not giving him what he wants, even though he is everything. I still think of some dude in the sky. And I was really going for this. I was like, you know what? I'm going to go for it, because this is the way, because you're always raised that way. You only know what you know. You only know what you're taught. I don't hate Christians. I don't hate Christianity. I think it's got some, a decent path to it. There's truth in everything. However, I do think humans, ego, power has corrupted the information that Jesus was actually teaching, or that is actually meant to be taken from the Bible. But that's not what this video is about. So I was Christian for about 23 years, and in my 23rd year, I was doing my best to be a good Christian. Doing my best. I was in a really dark period of my life. Nothing was working out. I had always struggled. I was working a job that was barely paying my bills, barely making enough money. I would work 12 hours a day, construction at this time. Did anything I could, pretty much. Construction. I used to work in sales, because I love talking to people, and I figured, hey, talk to people for a living. That's great. I'm good at it, but they want you to become the sales places I worked in, jewelry, wanted me to become a manipulator, and I'm not really that type of person. I'm just here to help. I do my best. If you don't want it, it's cool. But I was in this really dark period of my life, and I knew something had to change. So I started searching for books on YouTube. Literally, I'd type in YouTube because I didn't want to buy a book. So I'd go on YouTube and I'd type in self-help books, personal development books, books to help me grow. And I'd listen to these half-assed books on YouTube, just some audios. None of them were really hitting. I was just like, man, this is tough. I'm going through a book a day at work, because I did construction. I would dig trenches all day in Arizona in 120-degree weather. I'd just put my headphones on, I'd dig, and I'd drink water, and I'd just do that all day. I'd move tons of dirt. Sometimes I'd move 12, 15 tons of dirt or rock or pebble, whatever I needed to move that day. I was building pools in Arizona. It's crazy. But I came across this audio of a book called The Untethered Soul. I was like, all right, that's an interesting name. Well, what is my soul tethered to? You know, like, just curious. I was like, all right, Untethered Soul. It was by Michael Singer. If you haven't heard of him, he's been around since the 80s. Even before that. Way before that. He's 80 now. He has a temple here in Florida called the Temple of the Universe. I studied from him personally for 2 months on his land. I would go to all his lectures. But anyways, I found this book, this audiobook, and it's him reading it. You know, I couldn't do the automated voices. But he would read, he was talking. I was like, man, this guy's got a, you know, he's an older man, you know, peaceful voice. It feels like words of wisdom coming from somebody who's lived a life, you know? And I was like, okay, this kind of resonates. You know, I'm hearing something here. And I clicked it, and I started listening. And I was digging a trench, laying out some tile. I was building somebody's backyard. Had a shovel in my hand. It was just me. And this first chapter kicked in, and in this first chapter he says something that really resonates with me. I have it similarly themed in my book, The Door to You. If you haven't read that yet, definitely check it out. It's my book, The Door to You, A Journey Within, by me, David Christensen. But this book, the first chapter, there's a part where he says, and try this if you're curious. He says, listen to that voice in your head. He said, make it say hello. And you're like, okay, hello. You know, say it in your head. He's like, now make it yell hello. And I was like, okay, you know, I can do that. Hello, you know, it's like yelling that in my head. I was like, got it, cool. And then it says, whisper hello. And I'm like, all right, whisper hello, cool. And he goes, who did that? Because you really experienced it. It's real. It got louder, it got quieter, it was neutral. Who did that? And I was like, I did. And it's like, yeah, that's you. You're not the thoughts. You're the witness of them. You're channeling them. You're guiding them. And that moment changed everything for me. I quite literally felt like I had stepped behind me. It's like I stepped out of my body for a second. I was like, what? Hold on a second. Like, I'm telling you, I had to sit down. I was digging a trench. I had to sit down, put the shovel down. I looked up at the sky. I felt tears in my eyes. I was like, this is information that literally just changed me. For the first time ever, I was out of my thoughts. I had detached from them. It was an instant thing. Bah! I was like, whoa! Oh, I would look up at the sky and I was seeing, it was like fuzzy. I was like seeing stars almost. Like, it was shocking. And I was sitting there. I had to pause it. And I was like, I cannot believe that I just completely felt a change, a shift in me, like, just from words from a book. Like, usually you're like, okay, what's the next thing I do? Like, give me a how-to type thing, you know? Oh, how do I get out of this dark hole? And like, this information, it wasn't that. It was just, here's something that's true that you've just never noticed. And but hello, I'm here. It's crazy. And from there, I continued to listen to the rest of the book. And at that same time, I went home. I told my girlfriend at the time, she's now my fiance, Brittany. I told her, you gotta read this book. I was about halfway through the book at the end of the day. You know, we'll get to that. But I had come home and I was watching this show called Vikings, you know, on History Channel, but I was watching it on Netflix. This show was something that was keeping me entertained after work because, you know, it'd be a hard day at work, come home, eat, sit down, drink water, watch my favorite show. You know, it just helped me wind down. But after this experience, when I was watching the show, something happened. In the Vikings show, they talk about the gods. You know, it's not fully historically accurate. I don't really care. It was a really cool show. It really inspired me. I have Nordic heritage, Scandinavian heritage. Jeg snakker lite norsk. I speak a little Norwegian now because I just love it. But they were talking about these gods. And then you'd watch how they would honor these gods and like the experiences they would have, and they would explain how they're experienced in the show, and like they would show these characters like having these relationships with these gods and these different experiences. I was like, whoa, outside of my mind for the first time, which eventually I had to learn how to get out of it again because it pulls you in. You fall into the rabbit hole of your mind often, unless you keep practicing. It's easy to fall back in. But I was watching the show and I was like, man, there's something here for me. I'm not quite sure what it is, but I watched it and And I'd always wanted to be a content creator, create content in my life and do something, so I'd always tried to build social media. Since I was 16 years old, I've been doing social media, but it never really took off, never became anything. I was just doing it. And around this time, I was like, man, I really like this Viking stuff. That's how I started, this Norse stuff. I was like, I really like this stuff. This stuff is awesome. So I started diving into it, learning about the gods, just doing some research on them, starting with literally mythologyforsmartpeople.com. I was just reading about it. I read the Eddas, the Prose Edda, the Poetic Edda. I just started hearing about these things, like the gods, like who are they, what are they? And I started creating content on TikTok, revolving around like the Norse gods. And Viking being the Viking dad. If you've ever heard of that on TikTok, that was me. We went viral, went crazy, 10 million views a month for a long time. It blew up instantly. Within 6 months of reading that book, experiencing the Viking show, and then making a dive into it and creating content, in 6 months I went full-time. I was able to make a full-time income. It wasn't much. It was around $500 to $600 a week, but it replaced my work income, enough to where it was like, okay, this is what I do now. And then what became possible is like, okay, I've always wanted to travel. I wanted to live in a van or a car. I just wanted to travel. I didn't want to be stuck in one place. My whole life we were traveling a lot. We moved around a lot just because we had to, but it was easy for me to like not have roots and just to go like a tumbleweed. And the Scandinavians, the Vikings, were travelers. They were nomadic too, a lot of them, and they would go and they would sail over the seas, and they were adventurers and explorers. And I was like, this feels like me. This feels like me. And the content started to pick up, and I was like, guys, like this is what's happening. So we sold everything, hopped in my car and started traveling. I had a Honda Civic 2018 at the time, paying way too much for that thing. But we started in that. We practiced minimalism, and in 6 months, everything switched. So I dove into the gods. I started learning about them. That's when I started really understanding like pagans, Norse pagans at first. And it took me a while to accept that I was pagan now. I just felt like I was pagan. I felt a connection with these gods. More than I had ever felt with the idea of this sky daddy that I was making up. Some dude in the sky that's wrathful and wants to punish me for things that he made me do. It was a really weird thing, creating the creator of all, creating a place for me to be tortured forever. It just sounded, it was fear. I was like, why am I always living in fear and doubt and shame? Like I'm not, like it takes one moment for me not to be accepted. Like what if I don't do good today and then I die today and now I'm in hell? Like what the heck? And the fear of hell was something that took me a little bit to get over, but once you realize hell is a state of mind, so is heaven. Here and now is all there is. We're coming in and out of it in different states of being, and we're learning to cultivate our peace and rest in it. That took me a long time to realize, by the way. But it happened. This led me down a journey of where I was living. My dreams started actively unfolding. I was now traveling, creating content full time, developing an audience, finding a relationship with these beings, these gods that like I just learned about, but that were actually calling me. And I felt this connection to Balder, which is the god of lights, the beloved son of Odin. The story of Balder is that he was basically impervious. He couldn't be killed because his mother Freya, Freya, not Freya, his mother Frigg. It's either Frigg or Freya. I always get it mixed up. His mother went around telling everything that, like making everything promise not to hurt him. And everything did, except for mistletoe, because it was too young of a creation to make a promise like that. Loki, which is the god of chaos, figures this out, finds a way to manipulate one of the gods into accidentally killing Balder, leading to Ragnarok, which is the end of the world, basically. It's the first step that leads to everything starting to crumble. But Balder really interested me, and I ended up walking a very similar path, having very similar experiences, a lot of betrayals, a lot of people behind my back, a lot of people just throwing things at me, quote-unquote, trying to tear me down. It was a weird experience, but I started seeing that paths play out based off what you're paying attention to, what you're looking at. I started seeing that things unfold to prove your belief system to you. Whatever it is, you're going to find a way to reinforce the belief system you created for yourself. That's just how it is. Change your belief system, reality in front of you is going to start offering you chances to react differently to the situations based off your new belief systems, therefore leading to new interactions, new habits, new reality. It took forever for me to realize that too. But going through this whole travel thing, I started talking to a bunch of people. I started meeting Buddhists, Hindus. I still talk to Christians. I was talking to Norse pagans, Celtic pagans, Slavic pagans. I was meeting people of all different types of beliefs, and I was like, bro, as a Christian, I didn't even know all this stuff existed. I just thought everything outside of Christianity was the devil. You know, that's what I'm taught. That's what I was taught in Christianity, and I was like, man, like... Then I heard this term, when the truth, if the truth is the truth, it'll stand up to testing. And that really blew my mind, because I was like, that's true. Because the truth is the truth, and you'll know. So test it. Test the truth. Test what you think is the truth. Test your idea of the truth. Continue to test it. And see what stands and what falls away. What's authentic and what's fabricated. And you're going to start seeing it. You're going to start seeing it fall apart, rebuild itself, and you're going to see a more authentic version of whatever this thing is, you know? But as you're traveling around the U.S., you know, eventually we had a car, we had a van, that van caught fire, we stopped in a house in Texas, now we have a trailer, we've traveled a bunch of places in this trailer over the past couple of years. Tow behind trailer, by the way. In doing this, you meet a lot of people, a lot of different walks of life, from, you know, Tennessee, Texas, Arkansas, South Dakota, Wyoming, Oregon, Washington State, Minnesota, Pennsylvania, Maine. You know, these are just some of the places we've gone to. We've gone 27 states currently. Alaska. We've been there. But in doing this, you meet people of all walks of life, all different belief systems, all different perspectives, all different limits, doubts, fears, judgments. And you start seeing that when you grow up in one area, all you're seeing is one culture's belief systems or views, like kind of fabricated in a bunch of different ways, because they're all different people, but they all kind of resonate. When you travel, you see that everyone is super different, but also exactly the same. They're all just discovering. They're all going out and seeking for themselves. They're learning. They found their path. They found what works for them, what makes them feel, you know, honorable, or whatever it is that they're chasing in that life, you know. And throughout all that, I've found this fascination of who's the one experiencing all this. You know, because we're all having unique experiences. And when you read the book The Untethered Soul, he writes another book called The Surrender Experiment that I ended up reading. And that takes it even deeper, teaching you how to step back and surrender to life's flow. Surrender to life's flow by being in the moment. That was a very interesting experience to me, because now in certain moments I just surrender. I step back. I learn from, I sit with a blank slate. I see every person as they are being, not as I'm judging them for being. Because the thing is, first impressions are completely built by our belief systems and our judgments of that person. We could be completely wrong. You know, we could be completely wrong. We're just judging somebody. First impressions important. Yeah, you know, I would like to see you put in an effort, of course. But I don't want to apply my expectations onto you, because then we're just creating this weird dynamic of now you need to live up to my standard. Why? If we don't get along, that's fine. I'll move on. Like, not everybody's gonna get along. That's just how it works. We move on. I don't have to fight with you. I don't have to make you believe what I believe if it aligns with me. It works for me. You know, and I'm open to new ideas. If you are, that's awesome. Let's talk about it. You know? Not trying to prove something to each other, but sitting there honestly and listening from moment to moment. Presence with presence. Not ego with ego. That's how battles start. That's how wars start. But anyways, I read the book The Surrender Experiment, and then he wrote another book called Living Untethered, learning how to live in the present moment as a present being. that transformed everything for me. And then after that, we went to his temple in Florida. It's called the Temple of the Universe. We had some pretty crazy, profound experiences in the psychedelic world that I'll talk more about in future episodes. From mushrooms to the acid, to Dimitri, DMT, Special K, these types of things. If you've ever heard of those things, obviously, do your research. Be careful. Set and setting. Be smart. Don't just be reckless. These are tools that you should be smart with. But through all these experiences, going to his temple, it pretty much led to all these real experiences that I had in my human experience, like transformations that are undeniable for me, because no experience you have isn't valid, because it's your experience. You're the one experiencing it, whether I believe you or not. If you truly experience it for you, it's real for you. And that's okay. We're not all meant to have the same exact experience. But there are duplicatable experiences that we can have that help us process things, that help us move forward, that help us cultivate a more aligned life for ourselves. More peaceful life, whatever you're searching for. Not happiness. Happiness is an emotion. Emotions come and go like waves. Peace is what's always there. But after the Temple of the Universe, spending 2 months there, that's where I wrote my book. That's where I learned to make music. That's where I learned to be in the present moment 24/7. In fact, sometimes I forget to go into my mind. I forget to think. I forget to look back into my memories, because I just love being here. I still have my dark moments, and you still have to live with them. You still have to go through, and you have to be with it, be with the emotions, be with the feelings, be with the darkness. You're not there to avoid. You're there to experience. And all these things have added up to where we are today. Crazy transformations, experiences, going out, exploring, soul-searching, truth-seeking, approaching things with an open mind and curiosity, and being willing to put in the work and the practices that are recommended to experience these experiences. But here we are today now. Now I get to talk about these things. I have almost a decade of experience now. It's been hard. It's been hard. A lot of pain, a lot of suffering, a lot of judgment, a lot of doubt, a lot of self-deprecation. We get through it. It's the darkness. Navigating the maze of the mind is a whole thing until you learn how to step out of the maze. You made up this maze. You put together this maze. All these walls exist because of you. All the turns and the dead ends, they exist because you put them there. And once you learn to step out of that, you can start deconstructing that. You'll hear deconstructing Christians, deconstructing whatever. Your inner world is something that you have built that's shaping your life. And you can deconstruct that and build something more aligned and more honest and true to you. Not fabricated so that you fit in. But here we are today. Doing what we do. If you haven't read my book yet, The Door to You, check that out, davidsdoor.com. All copies are signed directly by me. They are self-published, so I send them out personally. Check out my handmade art. I have a bunch of beautiful art pieces like this one. If you're seeing it, it's my tier piece. Altar set pieces, jewelry, rings. I love making things. I love art. I love pretty much just being here, living life. Chase your dreams. Go out there. Take the risks. Be open-minded. Be curious. Love yourself in the process. Trust the process. Just take the steps forward. Eventually, you're going to get to a point where you look at yourself. You're like, wow. You won't even worry about it. You're like, how did I get here? Whoa. You're going to change. You're going to transform. And who knows? You might just live everything you've ever dreamed. If you made it to the end, thank you for listening. Let me know in the comments if you made it to the end. I want to hear a little bit about you. What did you get away from this story? Did you take away anything? Did it motivate you? What are you actively working towards? What experiences have you had? I'm very active in these comments. Very excited to see what you have to say. I'm extremely grateful that you sat through this. Thank you for sharing your time and attention, which are both things we do not get back. We're getting really close to 10,000 followers here on YouTube, and we're shooting for 1,000 on Spotify. So if you haven't hit that follow button yet, I encourage you, subscribe, hit follow, like this. Just do all the things. Share it if you know anybody that might be interested in these topics or hearing this story or any of the podcast episodes. Take a deep breath. And as always, I'll see you in the next one. Stay awesome. All love.